everybody, thanks so much for listening to Fire Breathing Rob. Greatly appreciated. We are moving up the ranks and are on Apple Podcasts. We're on Spotify, Amazon, Stitcher, and a whole bunch of others, which I will finally get the names of after a while saying them. But I appreciate the time. If you're listening to us on the radio, also, thanks so much on one of those radio stations. And if you're listening to us on YouTube, please also subscribe, like, and if you're listening to us on the podcast, give us that 5-star rating. Really helps out to get this out to more people, because we do interview amazing people that are doing amazing things all over the country and all over the world. So we thank you so much for listening. Today, I have one of my favorites, and I found out about him, gosh, maybe 2011, 2012, maybe even before that, because he opened up the American Idol experience. This is Mark Daniel. He is a legendary man at Walt Disney World and all over the theme park industry in Orlando in general. He's an MC, a host, a hype man, a character actor, and also a tremendous comedian. He has a YouTube channel and also an Instagram. Mark, I'm getting tongue-tied saying all this stuff about you, but anyway, but Mark, thanks so much for coming on. Truly, I'm not BSing you. It is truly an honor to have you on. I'm a huge fan.
Hey, thank you very much for having me, Rob. This is an honor that you reached out to me. You just told me who else you had on the show. So I'm sorry I'm taking it down a notch, because you had some big people I look up to. So let's see what I can do. Let's see if I can keep it nice and professional. Keep it in the ballpark you had it in before.
We'll start out small. And can you tell the viewers that don't know you a little bit about you in general, Mark?
Oh, definitely. My name is Mark Daniel. You can see me on my YouTube channel, but I've gained a lot of popularity when I host Inside Disney Parks, which was a webisode TV show for the Walt Disney Company, featuring a lot of the parks and resorts and different shows that happen at Walt Disney World. And in my own life, I am a host, an MC, a stand-up comedian, an improviser, an actor, a jack of all trades here in Orlando, and I like to say that I am a live personality. What does that mean? That means anytime you want to get the party started, you call Mark Daniel and we do it live.
And you just got married fairly recently, right? So congratulations on that.
Thank you very much. My beautiful wife, Barbara Daniel, and we got married on May the 13th.
My birthday's the 14th, so the day
there you
before,
go.
So that makes it even better. So
yeah, happy belated birthday, my friend.
I appreciate it. So
I was coming to the party, but then I had to go to my honeymoon.
Nah, hey, that's more important. Of course. I don't think the missus would like that. We'll move on to the next question.
She'll be a fire-breathing wife.
Yeah, you ain't kidding. That is true. 100% correct on that. Talking about growing up, Mark, were you always the character and the funny man in the family and even around the school? Or did you get into comedy in some other way?
So, yeah, I grew up in Trinidad and Tobago. So I had a pretty big family in the islands, and we had the nucleus of the family was my grandmother. So I had a lot of cousins and everything. And the Daniel family was just a bunch of clowns. We all very talented, a lot of musicians, a lot of artists. So when I was growing up, I was really trying to find my place. I tried music and it wasn't really speaking to me. I could draw, but not as good as the rest of my cousins. So, but we were always entertaining each other. And my grandmother, again, was the nucleus, very funny, always telling stories. And eventually I moved away from Trinidad and I came to America. And I think I started getting to my stride for stand-up comedy, just being the outsider, you know, the island kid, the weird kid. And I came to America and I went to elementary school. So I think I just did what I did in my family, but I did it by myself. And I think it was a way of surviving being weird, you know, people picking on you. So I just started making fun of myself and just being the class clown. And I think that was the catalyst of me really tapping into the comedy and tapping into making people laugh.
So we talk about the family and how they were involved in all sorts of arts in general. Can you talk about your grandmother more in depth? I know she was very precious to you. Obviously, she lived to 104. God bless her soul. I mean, that's incredible in itself. Not many people do live to that. So can you talk about her and the influence she had on your life and your comedy in general?
Definitely. She had a huge influence on my life. She was, like I said, the nucleus of the family, and she would always tell stories. And what I remember is her laughter going through the house. You know, she was always laughing and always telling stories. And with that, it's why my brand is LOL for life, and that's laugh out loud for life. And I really believe that positive laughter helps you live a longer and healthier life. And that literally comes from me seeing my grandmother all the way till she was about, 103, still being lucid and still being able to talk, still remembering. She could sit with you and tell you things about yourself that you didn't even know, but you knew it was true, and those were precious moments I got to share with my mom. But the biggest thing is, I remember when my dad told me, my grandmother was about, she was about 100 years old, and my dad was sitting and he said, "Hey, Mark, I have something special." He said, "If I want to at my age, I can still go lay next to my mom and speak to her and have a conversation with her." And he said, not a lot of people can do that. And to see that impact on my dad, and my dad just share that with me, I just knew it was, he had a gift to be able to be with his mom that long. And then I had a gift to see my grandmother, see her great grandkids and her great grandkids and her great 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 grands. So it was amazing.
Mark Daniel here on Fire Breathing Rob. If you want to learn more about Mark or even look at the merchandise that he's selling, LOL for me, it's markdaniel.me. So definitely check it out. Mark, as we go into the interview more, I do want to talk about this. You brought up a point about your grandmother really living by laughter, and that made her live as long as she did, which is an incredible feat in itself.
Mm.
We live in a country right now, in a society in general, as far as not just in this country, but around the world, where people are scared to death to go out. People have been in the house for 12, 13 months. People have lost their jobs. They're homeless. Regardless, the list goes on and on. We talk about comedy and people are living through these trials and tabulations right now. How can comedy really come back right now in such a tough time where people hate each other?
I think that's really when comedy shines the best. Comedy is something that breaks the tension. I think comedy is something that everyone realizes. It's the elephant in the room, and the art of comedy is being able to show the elephant in the room but make people laugh, and take the edge off of it. And I think more than ever, I think we need comedy now, and it takes good comedians to make that happen. I feel that, like I said, positive laughter, I think, makes you live longer. I think it's about being inclusive. I think it's about making fun of yourself. And if you're going to make fun of somebody else, I think it's important to not just make fun of the other side, but make fun of yourself as well. So that allows the other side to laugh as well, So I think it's a fine line. I think you have to be aware of the post-traumatic stress and the stresses people have right now. And there's a way to do it. You're going to have to walk that fine line. But I think, in these times, people are ready to laugh. They are ready to break that tension.
So we look at the good comedians, or some of the best comedians that ever lived. We go to Eddie Murphy, obviously Dave Chappelle's on the list, Don Rickles, and the list goes on and on. We could go to tons of people with that.
Yeah.
But if some of these guys that, Richard Pryor for that matter, if these guys were living right now in Don Rickles and they did their act, they would be canceled. So, can you talk about how comedy's really changed since you started doing comedy?
I don't think I could say anything to them, because I think the guys and women and men that came before us, I think they set the groundwork. I think comedy, and all comedians will tell you this, comedy is the last place of free speech, right? And, you can say some things that can offend, and we understand it. I think the culture has changed a little bit. I think what's appropriate now, or what was appropriate, 10, 15 years ago, is not appropriate now. But I think the times change and culture changes. And I think comedians will always be on that cutting edge now, people will call it cancel culture and stuff. But I think the comedians of today still push the envelope. It's just that we were able to push the envelope differently before, So I just feel that I wouldn't say anything. I don't think I would say, "Oh, you can't say that," or "You can't say this." I think everything they did was a mirror to society. I think was edgy. I think if it was horrible back then, they had to deal with it. Just like if you do something now, you have to deal with it. So I don't think it's fair to go back and say, oh, you know, you can't do that, you can't say that. I think it's really dependent on the culture and the time.
Well, I think it's even tougher now, Mark, because
Mhm.
you know we live in a life with social media everywhere. I
Mhm.
mean, there's
Yeah,
Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and you say one wrong thing or one thing that could be touchy, you're pretty much game over. I mean, we've seen a lot of people drop. So I feel like back then they may have had to deal with some stuff, but a lot of these comedians, if they, like I said, if they were here now and they tried to even do some of the stuff, they would
yeah,
get totally blasted.
yeah.
It's a
I agree
different
with you.
time.
It is definitely a different time, and I think one of the big things is like, you know, in comedy shows you can't record, um, and I think things. Don't get me wrong, a comedian can say something that's 100% offensive.
Mm.
Yes, and a comedian can say something that is offensive out of context. And I think with social media, and if somebody does record something, and a lot of times we can take things out of context. A comedian can set up a story and set up a character and say something that's offensive, but you get it because he's already set this storyline of this person, this mental state of what I'm going to say is funny, but it's not right. But I've set up already that what I do is not right. And I think out of context, all you need is a hashtag and you know and something out of context which can spread like wildfire. You put it on Instagram and it goes viral. You know, like you said, it is different, and it is because we have different ways of communicating now.
But you work downtown, Mark, and you do shows all over Orlando in
Mhm.
general and doing improv downtown. When these people pay to go
Mhm.
into these shows, whether it's improv, stand up, whatever it may be, to
Yeah,
see you, they're going to expect you to put on a hell of a show, whether it's making fun of me or
yeah,
someone else or whoever it may be. They do you feel don't you feel like there's so much sensitivity? Like I'm paying. If you go after me and it's in a funny way, I should be able to laugh at myself just like you can laugh at yourself. So
hmm,
I feel like if you're paying to go and watch somebody that's going to be a comedic actor, whether it's improv or stand up or whatever it may be, you got to take that into consideration. You can't be all offended if someone goes after you in a comedy show.
yeah. I think a lot of people I think a lot of people don't realize that, and I think a lot of people look for those things. You know, they want that type of attention, or they want a
Right.
repercussion for something. You know, I didn't say this, and I didn't come up with it, but a comedian, a famous comedian, once said the problem with sometimes they get like, you know, you get a bachelorette party, and and I'm giving you an example. Like, so the bachelorette, she's drunk, she's being disruptive, and you say something to her to embarrass her to shut her up. And they say those are the worst type of interactions because what happens is the bachelorette sobers up and she writes a letter on Monday,
Mm.
you know, and then this could be she was drunk that night and saying some stupid things, but nobody remembers what she said. But when she sobers up, then you find out she could have been a CEO of a company, and she's like, "Well, you said this to me," and then it's all twisted. So again, it's all about context. And but you know, as a comedian now, like you pointed out, you have to be careful, or you have to be ready to stand down. I think that's the biggest thing, is to be ready to stand down. And I think that's one thing probably with the new society now when you deal with comedy. If somebody is offended, you got to be ready to say, I'm sorry, I've learned my lesson, and I won't do it again, because you can't fight it.
Yeah, it's really sad because that's your job. That's your calling in life is to be an actor, to be a
Yeah.
comedian. And now you have to, play to people's sensitivities. I think that's just awful, but that's just me personally. We'll
Mhm.
move on to more questions here as we keep moving into the interview. Can you talk about what makes a good actor and even a good comedian if you want to extend on that also, Mark?
Mhm. Well, I'll start quickly because I have more experience in comedy. I
Mhm.
think what makes a good comedian is rule number one is knowing your audience, right? Who is your audience? You know, what did they come to see? What do they want? And for me personally, I think connecting. I think connecting with your audience is very important because I come from, like I said, I'm a live personality. So I come from interacting with live audiences all the time, like comedians do, but I also do warm up and host live events. So it's very much important to, how do I relate to the audience? How do I relate to the people that I'm talking to? And I think a good comedian knows how to relate to his audience, knows how to go with the flow, and always has a backup plan. You know, sometimes you could do a joke that didn't work. And how do you get out of doing a joke that didn't work? You know, there's all types of toolkits too, you know, that you can play with. But sometimes it's acknowledging it. Sometimes it's just talking about the room or what you just did, or, you know, what just happened. So really staying topical and being in the moment. I think a good comedian is always in the moment. And I think a good example of that is somebody that I can think of very quickly is Robin Williams, is being in the moment. If somebody sneezes, he's taking it, you know? But people didn't realize that his routine is written out, but we don't believe it's written out because he is in the moment. He can let go of a bit that he was going to go into talking about the time he went to the beach and saw a sea turtle and somebody sneezed. Then he goes off on that and can bring it back around to back on the beach seeing the sea turtle.
I want to go into this because, you know, you were so natural on stage, Mark. You know, every time I saw you, whether it's been on YouTube, in person, I know you've done a lot of specials for Disney in general, but on the American Idol stage where I saw you the most, I mean, you would get into it, you know, raise the roof, you know, push it down, ballad.
Silly stuff,
It's pretty bad. I remember. Is it bad? I remember all that stuff from like 10 years ago.
Not at all, man. It's a compliment to me, man. It's a compliment to me because, you know, that's what you want. You want people to have a good time. So the fact that you remember it and you're laughing because I'm being silly, and when people are silly with me, it's magic.
All right, to go into that though, how did you get so natural on stage? Because we live in a culture where, you know, even to go back to social media, people change their pictures on Instagram, put different tints, you know, and different angles. Do I look good this way? Do I look good that way? And there's so much self-consciousness right now in this society, especially young people growing up. They get nervous when they go out on stage. They get nervous when they talk to people just one-on-one, looking each other in the eyes. So how did you get out of that phase? Or did you even get into that phase where, you know, you may have been self-conscious or nervous when you got up on stage?
Well, Robin, I'm going to tell you a secret. I'm always nervous. You can't get rid of it. You just learn how to control it. You know, when I used to do American Idol, I was a warm-up host, but I also did a judge. And I used to love to quote something Judy Garland said. And she said, you never get rid of the butterflies. You just learn to train them to fly in formation. And I think that's perfect because that's what it is. I mean, I really feel, my personal belief is if I'm doing something and I don't have a bit of, not negative anxiety, I want to be careful, positive anxiety or a little nervousness, it's not showing that you respect what's about to happen, you know? So I always carry a little bit of nervousness, a little bit of anxiety. It's just natural because I'm getting up in front of people. But one big thing I want to say is that, you know, actors, when we do improv, not really stand up because you're really by yourself. All you need is a working microphone and a light. But any kind of stage production, we have a lot of support from the tech team and the management team and different things like that. So I will say the support you get from those people also help give you the confidence you need to do something. So there's a lot of people involved, but you know, to simplify it, you're always nervous. You never get over it. You can never be like, well, I'm never nervous. I could just go stand in front of people because anything can happen. You just have enough experience to know that if something different happens, I have the support of my team and I have the support of my experience.
So do you have like rituals you do before you get out on stage to kind of temper down those nerves?
Yeah, definitely in stand-up. I think with stand-up, a lot of times, me personally, I can't speak for everybody, but you really have to hype yourself up before stand-up because it is just you. So sometimes I'm in the mirror, just believing in myself, believing in my jokes, you know, really hyping myself up to know that if a joke doesn't work, keep going because they're here. You are the one that came to see you. You're in control. So when I do stand up, there's that type of hyping up. And the other is doing your homework. I think you know, if I'm warming up a crowd, if I'm at a convention and I'm moderating a panel, it's really doing your homework, knowing, just like you did, Rob. You know, getting the questions for me, like my style of questions, and knowing about me. You get that confidence in doing your homework and feeling confident in what you're about to deliver. So that's what I would say. It's hyping yourself up and also doing the homework.
It's Mark Daniel here on Fire Breathing Rob. Again, markdaniel.me if you want to go to his website and check out more about him in general, and also his merchandise, which is definitely something to check out. And I'm actually going to look into that after the interview. But we'll move right on here to more questions. So as we move into the questions, Mark, you know, we talk about working for the mouse. When did you have that kind of idea that you said, hey, I really want to get into entertainment and start working for the mouse?
That's a good question. I think it didn't really hit me until, because when I was in high school, I went into TV production, and I was very much into editing. I was fascinated about editing, how they edited films. And I really loved the Will Vinton stop motion, like the California Raisins and different things like that. And that's where my creativity got me interested in that I can do something in entertainment, because I love the fact that you would move these little clay figures, because remember, I was into art, and then you can edit it to make it look like they're moving on their own. So for me, that was perfect. So I really got into that, and that's when I started looking into different ways I can entertain, you know. And one day Disney came to my school for career day. And I remember I was being a clown, and I remember the lady standing there with a name tag on, and she had all the brochures out. And there was a lot of other jobs available. The military was there, different places, you know, fast food restaurants. And we walked by, my friends were like, hey, Mark, you should get a job at Disney. And the lady was like, yeah, you sure can. And she had like different types of jobs. She had like merchandise and food and beverage and custodial and maintenance. And I looked at all of them, and there was a poster of Goofy in front of Cinderella Castle, like you know, with the balloon or something. And I just looked, and I was being silly, and I said, yeah, I don't want to do any of that. I want to do this. And I pointed at Goofy, thinking I was the funniest thing ever. And my friends are laughing, like, Mark, he's so funny. He wants to be Goofy. And she went, well, you can. And I was like, huh? She said, you sure can. So I kind of, my friends laughed and they walked away, but I walked back by myself and I said, what'd you say? And she goes, yeah, they have auditions for the entertainment department. And that blew my mind. I was like, what? I can be that? And so after that, she gave me the information, and I went and I auditioned, and I auditioned to be in a parade at the Magic Kingdom. And I did. I got into the parade at the Magic Kingdom. It was a parade called the Electric Light Parade.
Yep.
And I could not, because they were looking for dancers, and I could not dance. But they needed people to carry the illuminated canopy as dancers danced under it. So I had a strong back and arms that could bend, and I was in.
So, Mark, you've been working for Disney for 27 years. Obviously, there's people that have worked there for quite a long time, you know, around that time, even longer than that. What's made you want to stay with that company for so long?
You know, like I talked about, like I mentioned before, the support you get, right? I was fortunate to be in all those years, those 27 years of Walt Disney World. I've been in entertainment, and I love Disney entertainment. I love the storytelling. I love the experiences I've had. You know, everything I do today, stand up, improv, miming, character acting, it all came from my experience from day one working at Walt Disney World. I learned so much being surrounded by so many talented people. Like you said, you had on the show Lulu, Lisa Glaze, and soon you're going to have Jim Braswell. I mean, these people are so talented, and I got to watch and learn from so many talented people. It was just a place for me. I just loved it, and it really brought out my creativity. And you know, Disney has a slogan. They say they draw creativity from diversity, and that's what I got to see. I got to see diverse people. I got to meet people I wouldn't meet otherwise, and just see them work and know what good work is. and learn things. So that's what's kept me there. It's the experiences that I gain and get, and the people I work with.
Can you talk about Comedy Warehouse for somebody like me that didn't experience the greatness that there was? Because it seems like there was so many great actors, actresses, comedians in general that really came out of that aspect of downtown Disney, we'll say, because that's what it was at the time.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of people. We had the Adventurers Club on one side
Right.
of Pleasure Island, and then the Comedy Warehouse. A lot of people from Comedy Warehouse has gone on to be writers for Mad TV, Saturday Night Live, founding SAK and different things like that, or came from SAK and went there. But it was what you experienced at Disney's Hollywood Studios when Comedy Warehouse went over there is very close to what was at Pleasure Island. The only difference was, it was a little bit at times, a little bit more adult, if you will, but when I say adult, keep in mind, it's still Walt Disney World, right? But we did have shows at like 1 a.m. So it was just, the theater was perfect, the way it was set up, it was a lot of fun. We had the stage was iconic, but what was really amazing is the amount of funny we did every night that was done. We're making things up on the fly. We're making up songs and scenes and funny characters. And if you had a really funny character, the audience would like you to bring it back, right? And some people were really good at it. I was never that person. I wasn't good at. I'm not a big time character actor like some people. And some people have characters that they can always reincorporate into improv scenes. But the amount of thinking on your feet and comedy that came out every night, I was just amazed by it, because you would do something so funny, and then you got to do it again the next night, and you got to do it again the next night. So that just really mined a lot of creativity. So that's what I loved about the show. And I don't think you missed a lot, but we played a lot more games when we were at Pleasure Island, more as when we were in the daytime at Disney's Hollywood Studios.
So let me ask you this. Obviously, I'm sure these shows that you did in the past really made you quick-witted and really, helping you think off your feet, like you said, Mark. Did you have any kind of mentor or somebody that you worked with that you kind of really would bounce ideas off or really learn from them, and he really helped you learn, even better comedy routines than you had before?
Definitely. I would say my biggest mentor is Dennis Marsico. Dennis Marsico is an actor, and he worked at Disney's Hollywood Studios in Streetmosphere. And I got to work with him in my first acting role at Walt Disney World when I became an equity actor. When I left entertainment, where I did parades and shows, I went into equity acting. My first job, I opened Disney's Animal Kingdom. And I got to be on the team with Dennis Marsico. And he taught me so much, like what was called at the time street theater. And that is, how do you interact with people, of course, in a theme park, but how do you get your character out? What jokes do you make? How do you mine from where they are and find out about them and make them laugh? And he taught me a lot. Another person was Mark Renfro. And he was my director when I did that. I worked with Dennis, and our director was Mark Renfro. And he specialized in street theater, and what you call organic theater. And organic is like really what it means. It's like mining from nothing, right? And that's what I learned to do. How do you mine information from people and then twist it around and make it funny and entertain them with what they just told you?
Can you tell the viewers of one success you had and also one failure you had, and how you rose above that failure?
Let's see here. So many.
Oh, jeez.
But recently, let's talk about a failure I had, and I learned from it. About John Anderson liked my voice, and he wanted me to do the narration for a documentary called "The Right to Fly." It was about the Tuskegee Airmen,
Yep.
and it was called Civil Rights, Civil Rights, Silver Wings, and it was how after the Tuskegee Airmen left the service, they were kind of like the start of the civil rights movement, right? Because the military was desegregated, but then they came back to a segregated America. And so I had to do a narration about their struggles and the stories and what they had to go through. And I'd never done a narration like that before. And I thought when I was narrating, I saw what I was talking about. Like, you know, when you watch like those National Geographics, like the lion chases the cheetah, I'm thinking the person sees it and they're just talking about it. But it wasn't like that. It was just literally script in a studio, just talking. And I didn't know what was happening in a sense. Like I was very uncomfortable because I was just reading this script and it wasn't going well and I didn't like it. And I was like, you know, John, I'm not feeling this. I don't like this at all. And I wasn't doing very well. There were a lot of German words I had to say. And luckily, one of the producers recording, she was German, so she would help me with the pronunciations. But I remember it was a real struggle for me. And so I wanted to quit. And John sat me down and said, Mark, I'm going to put a little piece together so you can see it. And he put my voice to what he had filmed. And when I saw it working, I was like, oh, okay, it does work. So with me seeing that, then I was able to push past and really go, okay, it's going to work. Let me start again and approach it differently. So, and then I knew that's how it was done. And then that helped me a lot. And a success would be when I do crowd warm up. I think my talent is that engagement. And sometimes like I do the, when they filmed the Christmas special at the Magic Kingdom and around Walt Disney World, they give me a microphone and say, Mark, you know, go entertain those people. And I think a success is, I learned quickly that, and because I've watched a couple people do it before I started really doing it, and I can see, I noticed that they got people that were performers, and the performers would just talk about themselves and try to entertain the crowd. And then I decided, wait a minute, what if I told them what was going on? What if I educated them about what a TV filming is about and where the cameras are? And I noticed that I got them to engage more. And when you're a crowd warm up, you tell the audience what to do. Like when it starts, you go crazy. And when this happens, you go, oh, and ooh. Then you leave and then they film it. And sometimes they won't do what you ask them because they've forgotten. But I found out when the people felt important and they knew what was going on, they tend to play along more. So the success I had was learning that and implementing that in my warm up and really engaging and showing the people how important they were.
All right, so we'll keep moving on into these audience questions. Again, for people that are just tuning in, this is Mark Daniel. If you want to learn more about Mark, you go to markdaniel.me and you can find out more about him and also look in his store. There's a lot of great things in there. What is your favorite part of being on stage?
I think it's the instant gratification of accomplishing what I want to do. And what I want to do is entertain and make people happy. And I think I get to do that when I do improv and when I do stand-up. And that's my favorite part. My favorite part is everybody laughing together and just having a good time and forgetting about whatever troubles they have, whatever's going on in their life that might be negative, and just being in the moment and playing. So that's my favorite part about being on stage, is that those moments where we all share a laugh and we share something together. Those are what I look for, and that's what I appreciate. And that's why I've come back to doing improv. You know, I took a break for a while because I did stand up and I stopped doing improv. And then I stopped doing stand up and went to hosting and doing conventions. And I've come back around to try to start doing more improv because I really miss the fun and the joy of just, you know, playing and laughing.
Right. So we're going to move right into the American Idol experience questions right here. So yeah, I would play the music, but I think that's a copyright violation.
You might get sued.
Yeah, so I'm going to stay away from all that stuff. So we'll move forward, especially with the show being back on the air on ABC. So we'll stay away from that.
On Disney.
Yeah, you ain't kidding, right? So we'll move on to the American Idol experience questions, which was really near and dear to my heart. A lot of people actually told me, Mark, to start getting a lot of the judges and the hosts and the warm-up guys on to really talk about the experience and how they felt about it and their day-to-day experiences with that. So we're going to go right into these questions here. So to go back to 2009, and actually, if you go on YouTube and you go to the first show, you look at Mark Daniels' face as the warm up for that first show, so you can still watch that. But with that said, Mark, what made you want to audition for that show? Or did somebody say, hey, Mark, we think you would be good for this show? How did that all come about?
Oh, no, this is a good question. And you might have to edit this out because I'm going to talk a lot. At the time, I was doing the warm up for a show at Nickelodeon at Universal called My Family's Got Guts.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I remember that now.
Yeah. So this was a show that was on Nickelodeon. It used to just be called I've Got Guts.
Right.
And then they brought it back, but then they made it a family show and they called it My Family's Got Guts. And it was like they'd make up these crazy, wacky sport things to do and different things to do and relays and different things. And they had two hosts, and I was the warm-up host to keep the audience entertained. So each they were shooting each episode, and they would get people from Universal that were in the park that day and say, hey, come on in, be the audience for this show. And so I was doing warm-up for that. And again, another learning thing, I was learning how to entertain people and keep them engaged. And, because there's a lot of downtime, especially when you're filming a TV show. There's a lot of downtime, especially a show like that, because like I said, there's obstacles and different challenges the families have to do. So they have to reset the stage and reset everything. So there was a lot of downtime. So I was doing that warm up. And then all of a sudden, they said, hey, we are going to need a warm-up host for this new show at Walt Disney World. And I was already working at Disney full-time at Epcot as part of the Epcot acting troupe. And that was another type of improv comedy show. And in fact, just to jump back a little bit, the people that they came to do the Epcot acting company, they're a lot of the people that left Disney and started SAK Comedy here in Orlando. So there's a lot of history there. But so when that came up, I was like, I have to do this audition. So I remember the audition was on a day I had to shoot the second part of My Family's Got Guts, which is, if you know the show, each episode, the end of the show, the big challenge is this giant mountain, and they call it the Aggro Crag. So, but there was no audience for that, but they had me there just in case. And the audition was the next day when they were filming the Aggro Crag. And I was like, I have to make this audition at Disney. And I said, you know what? I'm going to put all my eggs in this basket. I'm not going to be there for the Aggro Crag. I'm not even going to show up because they haven't used me yet. If I get fired, this show ends filming in about 4 days, but my career at Disney can keep going. So I made a bold choice, and I went to the audition and didn't go to work that day, and auditioned early in the morning. And I remember I showed up early. I was like, look, I don't have time, and I just want to audition now. And I think I was so passionate about it. They were like blown away. And I was able to get back to Universal and just blend right in, and they never knew I wasn't there.
Wow.
For about
That's
3
a
hours.
Story.
Yeah. So that's when I auditioned, because I knew I wanted this job. I knew because I was already doing warm-up, and I was like, a warm-up show at Disney where I could work full-time? This is it. So that was my inspiration.
So who else was doing warm-up at the beginning? It was you, obviously, full-time, and who else?
It was me. Let me see if I can remember. It was me, Ali Flores, who you had on the show, an actor by the name of Brian Brightman, who's doing very well. He's been in a lot of movies.
Oh, wow.
He worked as American Idol as well, and other roles at Disney. Other warm-ups. There was a guy by the name of Craig and Tom. So I think there were about 4 or 5 of us working there at the time.
Okay. Well, I know at the end, what was it? You, Austin,
yeah.
And Cameron. And
Cameron,
was
of
that
course,
it?
yeah. Me, Austin, Cameron. I think Ali still.
Yeah, he was probably a sub, probably. Yeah,
Yeah, at that point, yeah, he might
because
have.
he told me Austin took his contract. That's
Oh,
what he
okay.
told me.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I don't know. He would know more about that.
I hear
uh,
you.
I'm trying to. There was a Jam who was a singer, and he did it
Was
for a while.
there was a African American girl, the last show.
Yes, yes, yes,
Who
yes.
who yeah, and I only saw her like once or twice. I don't know what the heck how she must not have been there that long.
No, yes, she was. That was Lauren, and
Yeah, okay,
yes,
that sounds
and that
right.
was the
Yeah,
first female warm up that we had. We trained her, and she
right.
was fantastic. And
Yeah, she
she
was
trained
great.
in. She trained in, I believe, with Austin, and
Okay.
she trained in. And I think you meant. I think when they trained in, I think I got in big trouble for this.
Oh.
We did something where, the warm up. I went out first. And then when I ran off stage, I think Austin came out. And then when he ran off stage, Lauren came out. And then at the
Right, the
end,
last
we
show,
all
yeah.
came out. Yeah. And
Right.
we warmed up the crowd and they loved it. They had a good time. But so I got
Yeah.
in trouble. So I got
Trouble
big
on the
trouble.
last day of American Idol experience.
Yeah. So I remember I got in trouble and they called the director in, who was Mark Renfro. And I told you, Mark Renfro was one of the people that taught me organic theater and somebody I looked up to a lot. And I remember he called me into the office and he said, "So I heard what happened." I said, "Yeah." He said, "So I heard you brought, we ran off and somebody else came on." I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Was it funny?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Did people laugh?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Get out of here."
Oh man, that's funny. Oh shoot. Hey, that was a great last show. I think Cameron was actually up there too, if I remember correctly. Maybe
Yeah,
I'm
I think we
remembering.
all came out. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think we all came out.
But you obviously started because I know you started outside and then you let everybody in.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
definitely. Yeah, and it was a unique show, being able to go out there and with a camera person and capture some footage for the show, come back in, do the warm up. It was American Idol is a show that will never happen in a theme park again. And it
yeah.
had never happened before. I think American Idol was about as real as you can get to being on live television and being part of a live studio audience. And I don't know if you had planned for this, but I'm going to get into this a little bit because people don't realize the amazing team and the amazing
Right.
machine that was American Idol. I'm gonna take a drink before I get into it.
Okay.
People saw singers on stage,
Yeah.
right? And they sang. And we had a whole, and I don't know if you ever experienced it, but on the other side
Right.
we had a building that was the audition experience.
Yep.
This was an experience where if you could sing, you would go into the audition facility. They had it all set up like it was on the show, and you would audition for a casting director. And the design of that was there were some people that might not make it into the show, or they couldn't sing. So that casting director, they had to make a Disney experience for this person that's auditioning. So they would give them great advice. They would talk to them. They would give them tips and different things like that if they weren't making it into the show. So it wasn't just like, "Oh, I'm sorry, you didn't make it. Have a good day." No, they really tried to make the audition experience an experience on its own. And there were people working hard on that, really trying to make everybody feel like they were listened to and they have a shot. Maybe not now, maybe not for the next 2 years, but they can leave feeling like I still had a good experience. So you had that going on. Then you move into the full show, which is a whole different thing where you load the audience, you have the camera crew filming what's going on. And not only that, when the singers sang, they actually were filming the performance. And while the judges were talking, backstage, they were editing the performance because they had a recap at the end of the show. And a lot of times, American Idols from the actual show would come and surprise people on the show, as you know. But we also would have the production crew would walk through and see our show, and they would say, "Guys, your show is amazing because you're doing in a day what we do in a week," And it was fascinating. So we got really good on all aspects of filming and producing and editing that show, having to do that about, I think it was like 8 shows a day.
Can you give the audience some funny stories or a funny story and or even a special moment that happened to you, or maybe you made a special moment for an audience member or a person at the American Idol experience?
I think it just comes to my head because there were a lot of special moments, but I think the one that comes to my head was there was a lady came and she auditioned, and she won her show, and she won the finale show. And I remember she started crying because she said she hadn't sang in 8 years because she became a mom, and she never thought she'd be able to do it again. And this was so amazing that she got to perform on stage again and in front of people and doing what she loves, and won. I think that was a big one. I think there were times where there was an age limit there's an age limit for the actual show on television, but there was not an age limit for our show. So if you won the dream ticket, because if you won the American Idol experience, the finale show, you got a dream ticket, as you know. The dream ticket would allow you to get to the head of the line at any audition throughout the show where they had the auditions. But some people would win, and they were over the age limit, and it was really cool. They would actually pass. You can actually transfer the ticket one time, and it was great to see sometimes when somebody was over the age limit, they would win. And they would actually that night pass the ticket off to the younger runner-up and just watch those moments. So those are the things I remember mostly. But right now, I just can't recall any like
it was a long time
moments.
ago.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. Moments with like me or the judges. You know, I'm sure we had proposals and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but even to go back to that, I used to always vote in the finale show if there was somebody that was 14, 15, guy or girl, or a younger kid, and there was somebody that was like 50, 40, because like you said, they couldn't get on the real show. So
Yeah.
I always try to give them a shot, even if they weren't as good as that person. I just felt better off. And I think it was just better off, like you said, for them to get it and just give them a shot, something in life that maybe they could produce. And even if they didn't, they had a great experience about that. Who were your closest friends working at American Idol?
I would say like my closest friends at American Idol, Lisa Glaze, who you interviewed, Ali Flores and I, because we started doing stand-up together. So we shared that in common. There was another host by the name of Sean Klitzner. I don't know if you ever saw him. But he opened the show. We were friends too, and he was also another stand-up comedian. Greg Hudson and I, we were thick as thieves. We loved to perform together. We complimented each other, and we pushed each other to do better shows. And of course,
did he cook for you? That's the question.
Yeah, man, that lobster macaroni and cheese with truffle oil. Oh yeah.
Hey, that guy was the chef, man. Every person I talked to, because Ali said the same thing. He said he used to live with them. He said he used to make some real good food. And I remember Greg would put out videos on like Facebook and Instagram and stuff. And I know he did some sort of food show one time. And I was like, this guy knows where it's at, man.
Yeah, he loves it. He loves it. And and Greg was a guy who, I mentioned like what do good performers or good actors do, and I say do your homework. That was one of Greg's slogans. He was always like, do your homework, man. Do your homework. And I still remember that because Greg used to do his homework. He loved the show. He really loved American Idol. And we all did. But Greg did his homework. And I used to remember, and I always remember that. Greg would say, you do your homework? Because, if you don't, and your homework is whatever you need, the tools you need to deliver whatever you're doing, whether it's stand-up, hosting, improv. So if you fail and you didn't do your homework, it's no one else to blame but you.
So I don't think this question really affected you, but I want to, even if it didn't affect you, if you could just talk about how it affected a lot of other judges and host, a lot of the techs in general, a lot of the people that work behind the scenes, I suck at saying that word, but you know what I'm saying. The makeup artists will just say, because I can't talk. Cosmetologists, yeah, thank you. So a lot of when American Idol experience closed, it was tough for me because as a guest, I went to over 300 some odd shows throughout the time it was there. So it was a huge thing for me because it was a different show every time. And I think you stated that different different singers, different judges, different hosts,
Yeah.
and it was different songs. So it was always a different experience, which you can't say that of any other Disney show. That it's never going to be a different experience. When you see Frozen, you see it once, you see it 100 times. It's the same
Yeah.
show. There may be some different jokes depending on who's on or something like
Yeah.
that, but it's usually pretty much the same dang show. If you
Mhm.
go and see Beauty and the Beast, or it's the same show. So
Mhm.
that's why I loved the American Idol experience, because like you said, it was something different that you had never really experienced before, whether you were an audience member or a participant in general.
Yeah.
So it affected me because I loved the show, of course, but it affected people even worse because I was told that a lot of people that worked in entertainment, a lot of these people that were judges and all these other jobs, techs and etc., they losing that job. That really affected them because they didn't really have that backup plan. Some people did, some people didn't. I assume you more so had more of a backup plan than a lot of other people. You can correct me if I'm wrong on that.
Mhm.
But can you talk about how this closing of the show really affected either you and also the people that worked there?
Yeah, I'll tell you this. You know, a lot of times, performers don't really have a backup plan. I really didn't have a backup plan. I
Okay.
was lucky to be able to be moved to the Indiana Jones Epic Stunt
Mhm.
Spectacular. You know, I will say, because I was a warm-up host and I was a judge, being a judge was a hard job because we had three judges on the show. First judge was the archetype of Randy Jackson. The second judge was the archetype of Paul Abdul. And the third judge was the archetype of Simon Cowell. So you had the cool hip judge, you had the motherly figure, and then you had the curmudgeon. So it was a hard job as a judge because you're watching a performance and you have a certain amount of time to speak. And in that time, and a lot of people don't know this, but because there were different judges, we had, and I can say this because the show doesn't exist anymore, we had to, because people didn't know who we were, when you spoke, you had to drop a credential because you had to say, here's why I can say this. Here's what I thought about your performance, and here's what I'm going to say to make everyone laugh. And you can't pre-plan that, right? Because you are watching the performance, because you have to see what this person's doing. And you have to read the person. Some people can take a harsh criticism just because it's going to be funny. Some people can't, and we have a judge that is going to give a harsh criticism. But the reason that judge can give a harsh criticism is because the warm-up host already told you that if he does, his consequences are you boo him, and that is why that Judge 3, could get away with that, because there was a retaliation for what he would do. And we already set up that he might be rude, So it was a very hard job, and it was a very fine skill set. And people who've been doing that for years, they were able to do that and hone that skill set. But I will say, when the show closed, people were scattered. It was weird because we committed a lot to that show. And we had a skill set that we couldn't use anywhere else. You could take some things and do it other places. But I will say that when one door opens, one door closes, another one opens. And a lot of the people that I know from American Idol, it was fantastic. Maybe they don't have the job that was as fun as American Idol or was as fulfilling, but they've done well. They've gone, I know John Barr has gone on to singing on cruise ships. He's got his own company that makes vegan plates. I can't call them cheese plates because they're vegan, but
Right.
vegan plates with things you can eat.
Right. Hey, he's making a lot of money off that stuff now.
Yeah, so you
From
know what I'm
I've
talking
told.
about. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Austin's doing his thing with the WWE. Greg is doing his thing with the WWE. Jimmy B is doing well, teaching acting and doing his acting and commercial work. People like me, Simon Needham, Lisa Glaze, Angela Napoleon, Sheila Ward. We're still at Disney, doing what we love to do. So, there was some, people had to figure things out. But sometimes when you have to choose another path, it can lead to better things.
When I think I saw you as a judge, I think you were Judge 1. Does that sound
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I was only
Okay.
Judge 1. Yeah.
Okay, I just was thinking back and I thought
Yeah,
that was correct, but
Jimmy B could change. I
I
think
saw Jimmy B as a judge 3 before,
yeah,
quite
he could
twice,
change
I
from
think.
1 to 3. Yeah, he could change from 1 to 3. Yeah,
That was pretty funny to say
yeah.
the least. But anyways, but did you guys know that a lot of people followed the show religiously and would come back? You would see a lot of the same faces, or was that not so much in your mind?
Oh no, we knew. I mean, we had the singers that would keep coming. You know those
The
people.
singers, yeah, Jimmy
Yeah,
Bach and
yeah,
Louise, yeah.
of course, yeah.
Yeah.
So those people keep coming. Michelle was a young girl; she kept coming.
Right.
Um, so yeah, we knew the fans. We knew them. We addressed them. We knew where they sat. You know what I mean? We knew you. You know what I mean? So we all knew. We could play to you guys. And but yeah, it was well known, and we knew who was coming, who kept coming, and and sometimes it was like, there could even be times where we're like, okay, this guy's back. I can't do that joke. So sometimes it would affect us, but we'd have to alter what we do just to keep you guys entertained.
Right. No, I appreciate everything that you did. Can you tell the viewers why Idol closed?
Well, we really don't ever know why a show closes, right? It's
Mhm.
sometimes we're doing the show and we could be doing the show and it's the contract is done. We
Right.
just don't know. So I don't think anything happened why the show closed, right? I think it's just the lifespan of a show. I
Can
think
I rephrase it like this, Mark, though? Did you see like a slow downfall, like, that maybe there weren't as many people coming to the shows? Obviously that theater holds over 1,000 people. It was
mhm,
packed for a lot of finales, but it
mhm.
wasn't packed for a lot of the 12 o'clock shows, for instance, the 2 o'clock shows. Did you
Yeah,
feel like a downfall like that?
yeah. Well, definitely, there was a downfall like that. I think we
Mhm.
were at the mercy of the season.
Right.
I think we're also at the mercy of Mickey Mouse isn't in our show, you know. So I think there was that as well, and I think some people, I think American Idol struggled a little bit with people
Yeah.
knowing what it was. You knew what it was. If you saw the show, you knew what it was. But I think a lot of people didn't really understand what the show was and didn't understand that we're giving you an experience of a live taping of a TV show. But yeah, I think some of the times we suffered because of the time of day.
Right.
But the finale show was always well attended. We just had to get to it, right?
Right.
I remember we would show the finale show on what we called the Diamond Vision outside, and people would sit and eat and watch the show because it flowed like a TV show,
Right.
you know. But I will say the show was an expensive show. It
Yes,
was
I've
an
heard a lot about
expensive
that.
show. It
Yes.
was, and I'm sure you're asking me this question. I know you probably have some answers yourself,
I know
but
the
I can say
answers.
you know the answers. So I can say from what I know, what I can say confidently, it was an expensive show.
Right.
There was a lot of rights for music,
Mhm.
a lot of rights for likenesses, just the show running itself, you know, and connections between the Dream Ticket and and dealing with Fremantle, Century 19, and Fox. So there was a lot of elements within the show, and I think at the end of the day, it was an expensive show to continue.
Do you think it would have worked better now? Obviously, ABC owns the rights to that. ABC is owned by Disney, and it would have worked better now, obviously, probably because, the money would be not, it wouldn't really be there because Disney owns it.
Yeah. I think that's a great question. I don't know. I don't know if it would be better now, because I think the idea of Disney's Hollywood Studios is changing as we get more
Right, I agree
immersive.
with that.
So I think it did its time. I think it came out when it did. I think American Idol. People also felt like Disney got onto American Idol when it was going down.
Yes.
So
Right.
there's one, but American Idol still was the number one show. The viewership went down, but it was still number one when it aired, right?
Mhm.
Um, I don't know if American Idol now is as strong as it was when we had the show going. Maybe you can
that's
argue that,
fair.
but
I don't
what do
watch
you
it.
think about that? Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, I honestly never watched the show, period, on TV. So, Mark, let's step away from Idol and just finish off the questions here and finish off the interview in general, talking about your YouTube channel and your Instagram. I follow you on both. And I got to say, the Disney facts that you do, and I think you do it on TikTok also.
Yeah.
Yeah. And excuse me, I think that's where I saw the Disney facts first. What made you want to develop all these things, but especially the Disney facts? What made you want to develop that? Because you seem like you have somewhat of a following with that now.
Yeah, it's interesting, man. Rob, like we mentioned, I've been there 27 years, and I have a very unique perspective of being in entertainment all that time. There's so many things that I know that people know, but I know from like a different perspective. Like I saw the director, like Joe Rohde, the leading Imagineer of Disney's Animal Kingdom, walked me around and talked to me about stuff.
Wow, that's incredible.
I saw things being built. So I just was like, I have a lot of knowledge, and what if I just told people stuff like I see all the time? And it really, and I was like, these are facts people know. But what I started doing is I'll just walk in the park and be like, hey, did you see this? Did you know this? And people started liking it. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. Like, I just want to show you some of the things, because one of the big things when I tell people when they go to the theme parks, I go, slow down. I know you want to do a lot of stuff, but slow down. It's a theme park. Like, it's not just rides. It's a theme park. And one of my favorite parks is Disney's Animal Kingdom. There's so many beautiful little getaways and hideaways where you can just sit and relax and listen to the sound effects of someone knocking on the door or a telephone ringing if you're in Harambe, and sound effects. I just started doing it and people liked it. So I said, you know what, I'm trying to keep up with it, because I'm like, I'm running out of facts. Because the way I like to do the facts is I like to be there. And I think what I like when I'm watching, if somebody's in the space and in there at Disney going, hey, you see this? Instead of just talking about it, I really feel like I'm there,
Where do you feel like you do most of your facts at? What park?
Well, I'm at the studios a lot. Right. So when I'm on break, I just run out and do them. So right now it's the studios. But what I've been challenging myself, because I work in different parks, like I did something at Blizzard Beach. Like when I go to a different park, I'll try to figure out something when I'm there, and I'll go, okay, I know this, and I'll go do it. So that's been a fun challenge for me. Like wherever I'm working, I'll figure out a fact.
But I think you're right. People don't slow down, and people are just staring at their phones. They're trying to plan everything out, and no one just goes to the park and says, you know what? Forget it. I'm just going to do what I'm going to do. And if I don't get to it today, I guess it's easier said than done if you live around here and you have an annual pass, or you work at Disney and you can go whenever you want, than someone that's got has a family of 3-4 kids and they got to run around and do that. So I get that in that aspect. But what made you want to develop LOL for life? I mean, you did talk about your grandmother. Is that the main inspiration on that, and all the clothing and the stuff that you have?
Yeah, 100%. My main inspiration for that is my grandmother. It is my grandmother laughing and being joyous, and me really seeing that positive laughter makes you live longer. And I had an experience. I went to I also host Star Wars Celebration, and I went to Germany, and I was in Germany, and so I'm not a citizen of the United States. I'm a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago. So long story short, I missed my flight. And so when I missed my flight from Germany back to the States, the next flight was in like 4 days. So I was terrified. So now I missed my flight, and the next flight was in 4 days. And so I lost my ticket because I went through like a booking agent, right? Because they bought my ticket. So I couldn't change it. So I had to buy a brand new ticket. So not only did I have to buy a brand new ticket, I had to find a hotel for 4 nights in Germany. So I was really stressed out. So I kept calling the people that booked my ticket were all over the world. Like I was calling France and on hold, and I was calling China. I was calling all these different places to try to figure out who could change my ticket or could purchase my ticket at a discounted rate. That's what I was trying to do, because a full price ticket was just, oh my goodness. Right. So, and I'm trying to pay for 4 more days in Germany. And I didn't want to leave the hotel room because everybody was gone. So I remember I was really stressed out, and I finally, days and days of waiting and waiting, finally, I was able to get in touch with somebody, and I was so stressed out. And then the lady on the phone made a joke. And when she made a joke, I laughed, and it shattered everything. And that's the moment I really believed in what I was saying. I was like, wow. I laughed, and I hadn't laughed for about 3 days. I was stressed, and it just made me feel so good. And I got to experience what I hope I give to people, is that laughter and that breaking of stress. So, and it just reinforced my LOL for life, positive laughter.
So the last question, and then again, for people that are listening, this is Mark Daniel. We want to learn more about him. Go to markdaniel.me. You can learn all about him and also get the LOL for life. Anything. He's got T-shirts. He's got bracelets. He's got all kinds of stuff. Again, markdaniel.me. And for that. So Mark, as we close out the interview with the last question, what advice would you give young listeners that want to become a comedian?
Do it. Find your style. What do you like? Whether it's improv comedy, where it's stand-up comedy, where it's just writing funny stories. There's all aspects. There's writers, there's stand-up, there's comedians, all these different things. I would say, go out and do it. And if you can find a place to do it in front of people, and that's the big thing. It's about, you can't just sit and just write it. You have to do it. You have to see it working. So whether you join Toastmasters so you can talk in front of people, whether you just volunteer and say, you know what, I'm doing my own show. Friends, come on over and see my stand-up. I would say, find your funny and your style. And if there's other people that you look up to, watch them and see the work they do, because there's a talent to it. There are tools that you can use, and just go for it, but it really, you just have to do it.
Again,
yeah.
Mark, thanks so much for your time. Again, markdaniel.me. Definitely check him out. Mark, thanks so much for spending so much time with me tonight. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome, Rob. Well, thanks for having me on the show, Conversations with Rob.
Okay, thanks.